Okay, well, I first must apologize. It's been a long time since I did a layout update. I didn't think I got a lot done. I guess when I look back, I got a bit done. I've just been really busy. I've had a lot of things in my family life come up that has demanded my time. And I didn't think I got a lot of railroading done, but apparently I got some done. So we'll take a look at a couple of the things. One of the things I've started, we'll look at first, only because we're already looking at it. In the back here, I'm toying with ideas of some fuel tanks for the diesel facility. These are simply styrene pipe collars or couplers, or not styrene, I'm sorry, they're PVC. I'm not really with it yet today. I've done a bunch of locomotives that I have added. Some got weathered. I think I've added like 4, maybe 5 locomotives to the fleet. We'll look at them here in a minute. We'll run down here to the power plant as we slowly make our way down. I got a little bit done on the power plant. Not what I was hoping by the time I got this video done. The tracks got ballasted. I got the scale house done here at the power plant and a makeshift scale. It's supposed to be a weigh in motion scale. I got ground cover in around the buildings a little bit, and that's pretty much it. I've got a lot of details I want to get done here to the power plant. I just haven't had the time, or apparently the gumption or the want to do it. Been suffering from a little bit of that lately. So a couple things at the other end of the layout I want to show you real quick, and we'll cruise down here to the far end and kind of back to the engine facility where we started out. You know, I've run into a problem, not so much at the moment as you see, because most of my locomotives are either out front of the diesel facility here or sticking out the back. I do have 2, they're real hard to see, new locomotives. They're Jeep 30s, they're in the back there. I don't think we can see them to the side. I'll show you pictures when we cover the new motive power. But my problem has been trying to figure out what locomotive numbers of an engine that was either in the engine house or over here in the roundhouse, what number of what locomotive was on what stall or track, so that I could program my DCC to operate it. To make matters worse, like in the case of these 2 Jeep 50s, I believe they are, sitting here, that they're running in a set, so even if you knew their numbers, that isn't exactly the numbers you would put in your DCC. They're more of the consist number to know. So I came up with a real cool solution for that. I'm going to kill the railroad scanner here as it's talking a little more than I want it to. And this is my solution for the DCC problem here. Okay, this obviously is my turntable. This represents the roundhouse, and this over here represents the engine shop, the diesel shops. Now, as you can see, I've got little yellow magnets, and each one has a locomotive number on it, so that I can identify what's in the stall. And that's great for steam engines. But when you get a lash up of diesels, how do you know which one's the head diesel or which one is the number of that lash up? Well, that's what this consist list is for. Here you'll see this is the numbers of the consist that I have. I have set aside 24 numbers. The first 24 numbers for consists. I figure if I get more than that, I'll be doing real good, and my tiny layout will be crowded. Each one of these yellow magnets with a locomotive number represents a locomotive in that consist. So in consist number 9, I have the 1795, a Norfolk Southern unit, another NS unit, 6713. That tells me what 2 units are in that consist. Now if we look on the board for number 9, we can find out where that consist is supposed to be. Right now, number 9 is out on the road. So it's somewhere traveling around the railroad. Now we'll say if I wanted to run, we'll go back to the engine shop here, and you'll see how this works out real nice. In the very back, it's real hard to see, but there's a pair of Jeep 30s in there. We can see one of them almost. And as you can see, we can't quite see the engines, let alone get the road numbers off of them, or to even know what consist number it is. Well, we kind of get an idea. If we go and we look them up in the back here, it's a little hard to see, but this marker that says number 10, these represent consist magnets and where the consists are. So I can see that number 10 is in the very back here. I look up number 10, 3012, and they're definitely Val Valley units. And that's the ones I wanted. And this tells me the consist. So I can kind of look at the board real quick and I can see what consist number I need to program to operate them. It's a lot easier than trying to stare in the roundhouse doors and say, hey, what's that number of that engine way back there? I mean, it's not so hard for an engine like this one. You can kind of get close, you can kind of figure it out. But as far as the steam engines, they're a little harder to tell. So the board really comes in handy, knowing what locomotive is where, so you can pick it to run it with your DCC. And I've also found, having a lame brain like mine, if you're away from it for, say, a week or so, if you haven't used them, you tend to forget what locomotives are in what consist, and it can become a quick headache. Now, I've temporarily mounted my board up here on the wall, and by the way, it's just a magnetic dry erase board. The black lines are made from pinstriping, and then I had some numbers that were on stickers that I added to the board to help label everything. Eventually that board will be mounted in a better location on the front of a control panel, but for right now this is its temporary home. Okay, let's go back. Since we're in this area, I've had a little problem with a workbench in here. My room is real small, and the workbench traditionally has been this drop section of the layout. I would put it down and work on an engine because there was no scenery on it. But as we'll see in a minute, that has changed. So when I put scenery on it, or started to, I realized that I didn't have a place to work on locomotive. You know, I change a coupler, a car. I used to set my computer there when I would do programming. Jimmy, my cat, is crying because he thinks I'm in here talking to another person. So he feels left out. That's the noise you hear. But anyway, back to this. Since I put some scenery on it, we'll take a quick sneak peek. Can't see much, but we'll come back to that in a minute. Since I did put scenery on the lift-up section, I needed a place to be able to work on things. So, as I was looking around, my room is really small. The layout isn't very big, as most of you know. But I did come up with this cool solution. You're actually looking at my work table, which is kind of cool. I'll show you how this works. And you got to kick the leg out a little bit. But there it is. There is my workbench. All it is a small piece of plywood, or in this case pressboard from Pressboard Furniture that has passed on, and a 2x4 hinged on the end of it for a leg. And it's nice. I can now start working on something, and I don't have to take it all down like I used to get out of the room, because of the drop down bench was my work area. Okay, now I had alluded to the drop down section. In the past, I had posted a couple things in my videos and on Facebook asking users what I should put on it for scenery. And I kind of took a combination of their ideas and mine for what Wallace Junction should be. Keeping with the theme that it was named Wallace Junction, which is a real junction here on the Norfolk Southern near Erie, Pennsylvania, which is probably 70 miles from my home here. So this is what we came up with. Put her down here. Now, first off, as you're looking at it, I will note that this is a representation of Wallace Junction. I did a lot of history looking. I couldn't find much information. Wallace Junction was where the Bessemer Railroad and the Norfolk Southern, way back, it would have been the nickel plate, had a junction, and there was a switch and a couple interchange tracks and not much else. Maybe a tower, maybe not. I literally could not find anything online as far as pictures. So I kind of went with some things that viewers had suggested. Some said they wanted to see a park with some houses, a baseball field. Our area was really limited here. But I did like the idea of kind of a, not so much urban, we're trying to get kind of out of the city, which is right here. So it's going to be kind of a rural area thing. As you can see, I have a pond, and what I did was cut it out with a jigsaw, and then I cut what was supposed to be a 45-degree angle here to make the pond. I was hoping for a better angle, but it's pretty steep. It's also going to be pretty deep, but eventually I'm going to have a rock retaining wall here. I'm going to kind of build this up a little bit so I can have a swimming area here. There'll be a lot of static grass in this area. Again, it's kind of a country scene out in the middle of, not quite. The station here, I have no idea what the Bessemer Railroad really had. I've always seen this Atlas station as a kit form, and I found one fairly cheap, and I thought, hey, this would work out real well. We'll take a look at the back side. It has a parking lot. And again, there's going to be static grass and some stuff added. There's much scenery we need to do here. I'll go to the other side and take a look at it for a minute. We've got crossing signs that go in. These little concrete pads you see that I've got set up, which are really just painted cork here. This one is for signal and a signal cabinet that'll be facing this way. It'll always be lit red because there'll never be a train on this track, but it'll help make it look right. These others are for dwarf signals to protect this switch, and there's some to protect the other side. We'll go on the other side of the layout now here in a second. We'll let the crybaby in. Alright, and we'll put it back down again. Okay, we're on the outside of Wallace Junction now. By the way, this is Jimmy, who's been screaming at us. Say hi, Jimmy. And now he's not going to talk. That's like a cat. Anyway, we have the Bessemer Railroad. This represents the Norfolk Southern. And this will be the Val Valley, which runs up to the coal mines. A few things I'm working with. We have our inspection car shed, which is a Walters kit. And I love this Walters tower. Now, sadly, I don't have the power hooked up to this board, but both the tower here and the station have lights in them. They just aren't on. And the tower has a detailed interior. I frosted the glass on the bottom, and then I actually have a second floor with lights, and I had some pictures of it before it was installed on the board that you may have seen on Facebook or some of the other wonderful forums there on the internet. As you can kind of see, we've got Caboose Industry switch stands installed in this wonderful mechanism. There will be a limit switch here, a micro limit switch, which will set the dwarf signals here for this switch and its other pad, the other side of the diamond, that protects this switch. This far one protects this switch with these two. So there will be 6 dwarf signals in the junction when it's done, and another one of these micro switches will go here, similar to the setup you may have seen way over there that I used for the signals you can see lit there at the yard switch. And this is all the switches here. It's just a small limit switch. I got to cut the tip off, and they will go kind of like this. They'll get fastened down and the wires will run down underneath the layout, and I'll paint it black or silver to look like a railroad installation. But as the throw goes over, it'll allow this switch to open or close, and that'll set the lights, the dwarf lights. And I probably should explain this siding that appeared out of nowhere. It really is important, but almost not used. This siding here that you see runs all up along and then eventually into the weeds. That has been my programming track for a long time, and I would set a locomotive on it, do my programming, and move it back to the main line. I've been doing that for quite a while, and that's fine for diesels. But like if you're programming the 1218 or my Spectrum 611, which has an attached tender, you can't detach it. It's a lot of wheels to move, and it becomes a real pain in the butt. So what I'm going to do is the programming track will have a double pull, double throw switch hooked to it, and you'll be able to select whether it gets power from the programming wires off of the DCC system or power from the main line. This I can bring just the locomotive in, pull it up onto the track. Once I park it, I can then switch from main line power to the programming track power. I'll be able to program my locomotive. When it's done, I can flip it back to track power and back it back out without having to hand lift the locomotive back to the main line, which has been a real pain lately. And I used to do that all right here, put my laptop right where the pond was and did all my work. And when I discovered that I was putting scenery on it, I no longer had my work table, so I built the workbench back there that folds up as you saw it come out. The other thing we did, let me put up the bench here, and see, it's kind of weird to see buildings fly through the air and not fall off a board. I had been given a whole bunch of cars from my friend Don Wilson, which this town is named after. He made a large donation. This CXS car he gave me, and so I put it together and weathered, along with the CP rail car here. And he donated the Frisco and a bunch of other cars. I believe the Boston and Maine was his, and I know that Great Northern boxcar he had donated. And he donated a bunch of covered hopper kits that I haven't got put together yet. I also had another donation I wanted to talk about real briefly. You can see that I have some actual HO scale size cars in the town now. Some friends over that we call the Bloss Brothers donated these. They donated quite a few cars that we have now around the layout. There's a couple hidden over here, and there's some more over here. I had three HOs, or not HO scale, but regular Matchbox cars originally sitting here at the town. And even my 7-year-old daughter said, "They're just too big, Dad." And the Bloss Brothers were here to visit and saw the layout for the first time. And they didn't like the way it looked. And they were nice enough to come back with a large bag full of HO scale automobiles, which I have scattered throughout the layout. I have a couple up here in the Wilson that hasn't had any scenery done to it yet. And if we take our time and go back over, we also have some here in the yard. So we have our yard personnel and people who work in the yard tower can get to work now and have a place to park. So that really helped out. So that's most of the work that got done here on the layout. Let's go take a look at some of the locomotives that I did. I got an airbrush. I have been weathering most of my locomotives in the past were done with a paintbrush and rattle cans or spray paint cans. And this is a prime example. Came out pretty nice, but it's pretty much the same throughout the locomotive. You don't really have any control. They're weathered, they look cool, but I think a lot of it's just overkill because it looks alright, it's just not what it could be. So we'll go take a look at some of the locomotives that I recently weathered with an airbrush, and we'll see what you think of those.
think I should do one more? 375 they're all